and welcome to this bank holiday special from Rare Reads. I'm not going to be able to do two videos very often, but as it's a bank holiday, I wanted to do a review of this, so that's what this is going to be all about. I'm in a really good mood because I've been on a massive long bike ride, so I've got that kind of post-exercise buzz going on. I'm wearing my second favourite shirt. Somebody once said when I was wearing the shirt that I looked like a gay dad, but I totally took that as a compliment. Yeah, I'm in a really good mood. I've just had, I've won a competition, a writing competition, and if you go to my socials, go to Instagram, there's the link on there. It's being promoted by New to the Scene. It was one of their competitions that I won. So if you want to read a bit of my stuff, it's just a little character study. It's the introduction to one of my unpublished novels. Is there any other kind of Raytoon novel? But anyway, it's not about me though. It is about this, and I'm going to be reviewing this. So this is a happy, sad video because I've binged them all now. This was the last one that I'd got to read, the last Drew Gummerson one. So loved it. Can't wait to tell you all about it. But yeah, it is a little bit sad now that I've got to wait for his new stuff to be out. I know he's working on new stuff, but it won't be out, I think, until next year or the end of this year. Right, so let's get into it. So I would, if I was going to do an elevator pitch of this, I would describe it as Under Milkwood, Dylan Thomas's Under Milkwood meets Dr. Strangelove. That's how I'm going to pitch it. So it is, there are 6, these are short stories, but they're not that short actually. I would say some of them are novellas really. I'm not a big reader of short stories really. I'm really glad that that I have read this, because I think reading short stories is perhaps something I should do more of. I read a lot of short stories on my MA because I was writing short stories, but then it's not something that I read a lot of. So yeah, shout out to Drew for getting me into short fiction again, short stories again. So yeah, it's 6 interlinked short stories that are all linked by the setting of Saltburn by the sea, which is actually a real place. More on that later. Yeah, it's up north. I think it might be somewhere near to Blackpool. So it's a real place, and all of the stories are at least partly set there. To some parts of them are set there, if they're not all in their entirety set there. And it's kind of the vibe is kind of faded seaside glamour. You know, like if you think of something like, I don't know, Morris's Every Day is Like Sunday, or like that film, that black and white film with Laurence Olivier that's set in a seaside kind of variety club. Is it called The Entertainer or something? It gave me that vibe, yeah. So it's and it has a neighbouring town as well called, so it's the setting is Saltburn by the sea, but then there's this neighbouring town called Fulton-le-Field or Field, I'm not sure how you say that. And I get the sense that Saltburn is the poorer cousin of Fulton-le-Field. I feel like that's got a more posher vibe going on. And just first of all, the first reason why I love this and what is great about it is the world building, right? So I was so completely convinced by this place. I was so swept up in it. I really felt like, you know, I was there. And so that you've got various places within this setting, within this Saltburn by the sea, that keep popping up across the different stories. So you've got Ginny's Amusement Arcade, you've got, there's a fetus museum, there's a nuclear power station, an aquarium, a 24-hour gift shop, there's the electric cinema, there's a Swiss card sharp summer school, as opposed to, you know, kids in this place being sent off to summer school and doing, I don't know, bushcraft or sitting around a campfire singing songs and eating marshmallows. They get sent off to become card sharps. The football team of this place is called Saltburn Uninvited, which I just love that. It's brilliant. There's this guy called Evans, who I don't think we ever actually meet him. It's just this shadowy, like Bond villain in the background. I'm going to call him a tin pot Elon Musk. He's like an entrepreneur, and he's called Evans. He pops up quite a lot as well. And it's just this, Drew Gummerson does something so clever with this book, and I have seen this done before, and it is something that I really kind of admire in a book. It's got this kind of timeless quality to it, and even though it is set in a real place, he doesn't pin it down to any particular kind of time period, so it just gives it this really timeless quality. There is one of the stories that we do get a date stamp on. I'll tell you a bit more about that later. But he never mentions like things like anything as specific as a prime minister or a government or anything like that. He does talk about new Puritanism sweeping the country. Whenever he mentions, like, he never mentions a prime minister. I think he calls them the leader or something like that, or the president or something like that. So he does this really clever thing where he doesn't pin it down to any particular time period, which just makes it, gives it this timeless quality. So my first shout out for this book is just for the world building and the way that he brings to life this seaside town, and you just get completely swept up in it and immersed in it. So what I'm going to do is just to make this give it a bit of structure, this video, I'm going to just talk to you now about each of the 6 stories and give you a little, I'm not doing spoilers, I won't do spoilers. So the first story is called Meltdown, and it is set primarily in the nuclear power plant. And it focuses on, the main character is a young lad called Arthur. And so his mum has 2 jobs. She works at the power plant, I think she's a cleaner there. And then also, she is a travelling wallpaper salesperson. And she has this like trolley where she has all of her wallpaper that she trundles around the town, selling wallpaper. Until, unfortunately, she is stopped by a parking attendant who confiscates her trolley and stops her from doing this, and then they fall on even harder times. There's a lot in this book of families that have fallen on hard times, and it tends to mainly focus on the kids and how that affects them. That's mum. And there's this really funny thing where you go, in fact, I'm going to just read this little bit for you actually from this first story about how his mum comes to have her secondary employment kind of ruined by this parking attendant. A car park attendant who had a long-held aversion to wallpaper, anything pasted to a wall, in fact, ever since a Howard Jones poster had unpeeled itself and smothered him as a boy, reported her, and under a glaring, unforgiving Sun government, agents arrived at their home, cast out the cart and smashed it to smithereens right outside in the street for everyone to see. And then it goes on, for 2 weeks, Arthur and his mother lived on tins of sardines and cans of, there's a lot of sardine references in this book, and cans of spaghetti and sausages, bought with the money Arthur earned from the tea shop and his mother's paltry cleaning wages. But all too soon the rent was due and Arthur needed new trousers for school, ones that didn't ride up his bum crack, dividing his cheeks so decisively that when he needed to perform his ablutions they came together like friends at a party who hadn't seen each other for years. And that's just one. It is a very, very, very funny book, as you would expect from Drew Gummerson. So you've got that trademark humour in there, absolutely. So Arthur then ends up, his mum throws herself off the Humber Bridge and he ends up going to work at the power plant, and he is sort of befriended by this guy called Archie who works there, who takes him under his wing. And this story has an amazing, like, transcendent ending to it. I'm not going to give any more away than that because I don't want to do spoilers, but the power plant turns out to be not powered by nuclear, as you would expect, but by something else. There's a little teaser for you. There is a sense in, I got something from this book that maybe I didn't get so much from his others, and maybe this might be my favourite Drew Gummerson book. It does just have in places this transcendent quality to it, this almost sublime nature, where it just really lifts your spirits, and that's just one of the times where it does that, is at the ending of this story, Meltdown, the first story in the collection. Story 2 then is called The Aquarium, and this is a bit, it's done something a little bit different here, where he does give a date stamp. So we are set in 1931 in this story, and so it is about Ferdy, the son of a glove maker, who very much doesn't want to walk in his follow in his father's footsteps. So I'll just read you the opening of this one, because I just love it, because it really throws you, it sends you in one direction and then it kind of pulls you back in another. So on a cold spring morning in 1931, Francis Sheldon Sr. stood erect on the Saltburn station platform in an extraordinarily tall top hat and a pair of squeaky shoes polished to a high shine by his servant Wilson. He was a proud man. Already a success, he had envisaged this moment, this launch, as the beginning of a new age filled with gloves, his gloves. And then it goes on, and then he's saying goodbye to his son and says, be safe. He's sending his son off to sell his gloves. Be safe, my son, he said, and remember, Sheldon, Sheldon and Sheldon. So it sets it up as being, you know, you think, oh, right, okay, now we're going into historical fiction territory, and this is very different, you know. But no, of course, it's Drew Gummerson, so no. Sheldon, Sheldon and Sheldon, my arse, mouthed back Francis Sheldon Jr., loose lips largely obscured by the grimy windows of the stopping rain that was to take him south to London. He said it again for good measure. Sheldon, Sheldon and Sheldon, my arse. My father, you are a prime buffoon. I have bigger fish to fry. And so it goes on. And then practically, I think by the next page or something, he goes to the bathroom on the train, takes out his like suitcase of gloves that his father's sending him off with to sell. He just starts urinating in the gloves, and then he wipes his arse on the... It's just a cracking good like opening to the story, and then it just kind of gets better and better as it goes on, really. Yeah, so it's about him basically meeting this guy called Nemo, who has a dream he wants to go on a quest and find the Kraken, the legendary sea monster, the Kraken. So they form this little, like, nice little relationship, the two of them. And it's reminded me a bit of the relationship in Mickey and Me, in terms of Ferdy is constantly putting his own wants and needs kind of thing on the back burner to try to make Nemo's dreams come true kind of thing. So there's lots of occasions where Nemo thinks his dream is going to come true, because he'll meet somebody, a scientist or something, and he'll think, oh, this is going to be my key to, finding the Kraken. And then, but people just keep on kind of using him and kind of then just dropping him. So at one point he goes off and meets Jack Cousteau, but then that just kind of comes to nothing kind of thing. It is, this story, really a celebration of queerness. I just love towards the end where they open this aquarium and it gets shut down by the authorities when they find out that the two of them are in a gay relationship. And then what happens is lots of the staff, because they take away all of they try to make out like they're abusing the exhibits, these sea creatures and stuff, so they take them all away. And obviously you can't have an aquarium without your sea creatures. But what happens is some of the townsfolk rally around and they kind of like dress up as like these exotic sea creatures and go in the tanks. So yeah, it's just got this lovely, positive message, as has the whole book really, pretty much. Story 3 then is called A Piece of Ass, and this is Corey's story. Corey's mum is a medium, but her sign gets stolen. I think some kids take the sign and use it as a surfboard, I think. And then her tent gets blown down, and so the family fall on hard times, as keeps happening in this book to various of the Saltburn sprogs. And Dad works at Moustaches. I'm just going to give you a little reading here of how it talks about Dad. Corey's dad didn't make at Moustaches what he used to make at Consenting Adults. Even though most of the time at Consenting Adults, he just tended the desk or replenished the stocks. Genuine 1930s merkins, cock rings, used during the British Raj, snippets of hair cut from Errol Flynn's butt crack and sold on in little presentation bottles with a fondling cloth. Only Drew Gummerson could come up with a little detail like that. So the family falls on hard times, they can't make ends meet, and they send Corey to, and I love it, something I loved about this story, I was talking earlier about, there not being a really definite sort of context, a time frame or whatever. There's also something really interesting with this story where it feels like it's set in America. The family, just for some reason, they just talk like in American a lot of the time, like, they'll go dough instead of money, or, geez, Matt, they kind of just talk like Americans, which really threw me at the beginning of the story. And this is, it goes off in all kinds of different tangents, this book, which is one of the things I love about it. They send him off to the Swiss card sharp summer school, so that he can help them make ends meet and pay the bills and whatever. And here he falls in love with Eli. And so some of the sort of bullies in this like summer school have figured out that he likes Eli, and he's getting bullied for it. And they want him, there's this one day where they're like egging him on and wanting him to kiss Eli's bum. And he refuses to do it. So they get Eli and they whip his trousers down, and they sort of get whole, like in films where people use a battering ram, where you get a whole group of people and they've got like a great big log, and this is what I had in my mind when, so there's a group of them and they pick up Eli, I'm imagining like a battering ram, I don't know if that's how I'm supposed to imagine it, and charge at Corey, and then the bum comes flying at him in his face and he bites off a just bites off a chunk of it. And then there's just this really interesting so in Hotel Flamingo, probably one of the most iconic things about that book is Morse Bum, which is where there are two lads who send messages to each other across rooftops by doing Morse code with their bums, by pulling moonies. And this book has, rather than Morse Bum, it has telepathic bum. I won't say any more than that, because I'm trying to just... This book does have a very, very clever structure. Sorry, this story has a very clever structure in terms of the narrator. So at the beginning of the story, you aren't that clear on who the narrator is in terms of how he fits into what's his relationship with Corey and Corey's family. But that becomes clear sort of at the end, where there's a really, just a really clever kind of little twist at the end. So that is a piece of ass, potentially my favourite story of the collection. Very, 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 very funny. Story 4 then. This is called A Stick of Rock. So this story is set in the 24-hour gift shop. So Saltburn, for some God knows what reason, has a 24-hour gift shop run by Harry Gumshoe and Mary. And they both take alternating 12-hour shifts, so they never see each other, just these ships that pass in the night. But in addition to running this 24-hour gift shop, they too are, have fallen on hard times. They can't make ends meet. So they both have kind of second jobs. Harry's second job is being a private eye. So he's like this hard-boiled detective. And the thing that he is investigating, the crime that he's investigating in this story, this is just classic Drew Gummerson. So they sell sticks of rock, amongst other things, in this gift shop. And somebody is putting swears in the sticks of rock. So they've defiled the scene. A stick of rock it should have Saltburn written all the way through it. But when people are biting into this rock, it's got, all kinds of expletives in the centre. And so he has to investigate and find out who could be behind this rock racket. So it's very, very funny. And I want to just tell you about one thing that I find really quite interesting about the way that Drew Gummerson writes. So something that this book has a lot of, that I know some people would heavily criticise this. I love it, but I know that some people would heavily criticise it. So there is a point in this story, at the beginning of this story, that is set in this gift shop, where you just get a whole page, or I think it actually goes even further than just one page, this really dense passage where he just lists all of the items in this shop with also their prices. And I know a lot of people, if this went in front of an editor at a mainstream publishers, they'd go, oh, you need to pare that back. You know, you've got way too long a list there. You need to pare it down, just do 3 or something. But what he does that's really clever with it, and there is lots and lots of lists in here actually. What he does that's really clever is there's points in the other stories where he'll mention an item that you can buy at this shop, and it will also have the price in brackets as well. So he's like referring back to, almost like he's justifying why he's used this great big long list, because it's like, oh, well, later on I'm going to mention that item again. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like he's sort of trying to kind of outwit his critics kind of thing. I'm probably reading way too much into this, but anyway, that was one of the things I liked about his other list. The other thing, I'm just going to read you this bit because this really made me laugh. So Mary, so as well as Harry having a second job and being a private investigator is his second job, Mary also at some point in this story decides that, you know, she's going to have to take on additional work to try and make ends meet. So the following morning at 7 o'clock, when Harry went downstairs to take over from Mary, she said he looked tired. She looked tired too. It was a tiring life, would be, wouldn't it? Working 24 hours a day and then doing additional jobs as well. To earn some extra money, she said, I've been sewing turnips into men's trousers. I'm going to sell them £2.15 a pair. I heard down at the market that turnips are going to be all the rage this year. It's turnips, Harry started to say, but didn't have the heart to disillusion her. I just think that's just it's a cheesy gag, but, you know, I love it. Story 5 then is called Ginny. And this is a queer take on the sort of the werewolf trope, really. It has, I think, probably my favourite opening line of any of the stories in the book. It just opens with, Ginny's father dived into a cup for a living, which I think may be a reference to a story, a Raymond Carver story, which is called Viewfinder, which also is a great short story. A man without hands came to the door to sell me a photograph of my house. I'd be interested to know if he's kind of doing a little reference there. Yeah, I just love that opening. And so, yeah, it's about Ginny, obviously, as the main character. And he has, lots and lots of lovely male friendships in this book. So he has a best friend who's called Charles. And Charles's dad, so lots of like just interesting professions in this book. Charles's dad is a map maker. And I'm just going to read you this little bit because this really made me laugh out loud. Ginny's best friend Charles lived with his father in an extremely narrow and dilapidated house situated between Saltburn's lifeguard station and the school for the blind. Charles's father worked as a professional map maker. In a fit of self-promotion several years previously, he had changed the family name to Atlas. Overnight, Charles Johnson had become Charles Atlas, like the Italian-American bodybuilder with the fabulous body, who in turn had named himself after the statue of Atlas on top of a Coney Island hotel. Just a priceless little bit. So what I love about this story, this is the shortest I think in the collection, what I love about it is it has gender fluid representation and it doesn't feel forced. What Drew Gummerson is doing in, I think, all of his books, I think I'm right in saying, is LGBTQ plus representation that is not commodified, that does not feel like he's just doing it, you know, to tick a box or to try and, or for the marketing or, you know, whatever. It feels really true. I don't want to say that word authentic, but, you know, it does really feel genuine and just natural, just like it doesn't feel forced at all. As someone who, you know, I would come under that, I suppose, that trans umbrella. I'm non-binary. I don't really feel, I don't feel feminine, but I don't feel that masculine either. I'm somewhere in that grey area. And I feel like this is the area that is least understood and is least represented from what I read anyway. I mean, if I'm reading the wrong books, point me in the right direction, please. But I do not come across representation that makes me feel that, you know, or somebody understands, you know, what it's like to not really know where you fit on the gender spectrum kind of thing. But this, it just really it just resonated with me so much in terms of the ambiguous gender representation. I love it for that. I love it for that. And so the idea is that as a werewolf switches between human and wolf, Ginny switches between male and female. And he goes off to Paris in search of Man Ray, who he's hoping will want to photograph his androgyny. So that one, Ginny. Shout out to the LGBT community. Shout out to all you queerdos out there. Okay, the last one then, the last story. This is story number 6. And we're supposed to do it in 5s, aren't we? But, you know, what the hell. This is Drew Gummerson, you've got to do it different. So this is called Sven Goes to War. Very clever story. If you like your satire. So if you like Dr. Strangelove, if you like Catch-22, this is a must. More gender ambiguity in here, yeah, and even using they, them pronouns. Thank you, Drew Gummerson, so much for that. So this is about Stanley Tossier Gumshoe. He is Harry of the Gift Shop fame son. It's about him and, again, a male friendship. So his friendship with a lad called Stanley, who goes off to war and writes lots of lovely letters back to Sven. And at this point, he thinks maybe he's not going to see him again, kind of thing. So it's quite sad. Sven also has a dead sister, and there is the ghost of his dead sister in this story as well. Anything with a ghost, I'm all in. I love ghosts, ghost stories. There's a brilliant biblical reference in this story towards the end, where Sven also ends up signing up and going off to war in search of Stanley, basically, because he wants to be reunited with him. And at some point in the story, there's someone MIA, someone's gone MIA, and they want someone to go out and find and track down, hunt down this soldier that's gone MIA. And Sven thinks, maybe it's Stanley, this might be our, chance to be reunited. And so he volunteers to go off on this mission. And he ends up spending 40 days and nights in the desert, which is obviously a reference to Christ in the Bible when he does the 40 days and nights, and really clever this. And at the end point of this, he ends up in this most bizarrest of settings, in this aqua world, this like water park with no water. And there's a really clever, like, little political, satirical kind of thing that Drew Gummerson does here. He's such an intelligent, clever. These are not just, laugh at it and then throw it away kind of books. They are really, really clever as well. Drew Gummerson is a really intelligent writer. So he goes off, into the wilderness looking for his long lost friend. And the ending of this, I'm choking up a bit just thinking about it, actually. It made me cry, and it's not that often that I cry at books. It made me cry, and I think it's not sad really. I wasn't crying out of sadness. It was happy crying. But also I think it was tinged with sadness that I'd realised, oh God, this is it. I've binged all his books. I've got nothing left that I can read. I've got to wait now for the next book to come out. So it was very kind of mixed emotions at the end of this book. But it does have this wonderful, like the first story, the book is kind of bookended, if you will, by these two stories that both have these really euphoric, uplifting, transcendent endings. That really does elevate this book and this writing beyond just comedy writing. It sort of draws together all of the elements, all the settings and all the different characters and everything all come together at the end of the book. And it's as though I felt like I'd just been lifted up on a hot air balloon or something like that. And I was looking down on Saltburn, and I was looking down on almost like, like I died and my spirit's gone up to heaven or something. I'm looking down on all of these wonderful characters that I've met and fallen in love with over the course of the book. And it's tearing me up now just thinking about it. It's an amazing book with an amazing ending, and you don't get that very often. It does something really clever, and getting the balance right of doing a sort of hopeful, uplifting ending, but not making it really cheesy, not making it like, oh, and then they went off into the sunset together and had a family, or it doesn't do anything like that. It avoids any kind of cliche or anything like that. But the ending is just, I'm going to say sublime. Yeah, and I know that's a kind of very big thing to say about a book, but I think it deserves it. So now, I'm feeling a little bit bereft. I am. I have had a balmy idea. I don't know whether to do it or not, but I'm very seriously considering. I looked up where Saltburn is. It's about 130 miles away from my house. It's a long way. I did look up a route, an off motorway route. I am seriously thinking about getting on my push bike and doing a pilgrimage to Saltburn. Just to go and have a look round and see if any of these places are real. Is there a fetus museum? Is there a Ginny's arcade? Or, do you know what I mean? I want to kind of go and actually physically go to this place now. I don't know whether I will make it or not. I don't know if my 55-year-old legs are too old now to be pedalling that far, but I am seriously considering it. And I might get myself a t-shirt printed and be a human advert and just become a character from a Drew Gummerson book in the process. So there you go. It's an absolutely cracking read. Buy it, read it. You won't regret it, I guarantee. And that's it for now. I'll be back soon with maybe my top 5 metafiction, I think is what I might do next. Obviously, like and subscribe, please. Thank you so much for watching, and catch you next time.